Nilsen helps a guy out, a 20-year-old who he later discovers after a drink or two is gay like him. Soon a relationship blossomed. Things were looking up. They both moved into a house on Melrose Avenue, number 195. The first place that would become a house of horrors. Like a scene from a Hollywood rom-com, the two loved up and spent months cleaning up the place, planting flowers in the garden, painting the walls, giggling as they threw soap suds at each other while doing the dishes. Seemed like domestic bliss. Although as time went on, that pale of darkness soon hung over Nilsen's head again. Just a year into the relationship, the soap suds poured in at plates and glasses. They hurled abuse at each other. They slept in separate beds and brought other men home. By 1977, the two had gone their separate ways. This would be the last living love of Nilsen's life. He met men, but like others before them, they had no intention of staying with Nilsen. This was problematic for our killer, to say the least. 1978 arrived, lonely and distraught. Nilsen put all his effort into working hard through the day and drinking heavily at night. That was when he met his first victim, a teenager who'd been trying to buy booze without much success. Nilsen was out that night on the prowl, and as luck would have it, the boy found someone to buy him booze. After a heavy session on their acquisition, Nilsen woke up to find the sleeping boy next to him. He didn't want him to leave. He couldn't leave. In his mind, he said, "You'll stay with me over the new year, whether you like it or not." Nilsen took out a knife from a drawer and walked calmly over to the sleeping boy. He strangled him and then drowned him in a bathtub full of water. After that, he bathed and caressed the body. Now the boy was his. He could do what he wanted. The body stayed under the floorboards for months until Nilsen burned it in that garden he'd once made so pretty. Just a few months later, and the hard-working civil servant felt he was in need of another long-term partner. This time, he met a young man in London from Hong Kong. Again, after the victim was plied with strong alcohol, Nilsen brought out his tie. This time, it didn't work, and the man escaped. The victim told the cops, of course, but then decided he didn't want to take things any further. Did the cops investigate the matter? What they saw was a well-spoken man who had a tryst with a stranger, and things had gotten out of hand. Maybe that's just what they do in that community, they thought. If only they'd have watched Nilsen for a while, because soon after he met a young Canadian who was visiting England. Nilsen offered to show him the sights, but first, what about some hard drinks? "Why not?" said the Canadian. After ample shots of rum and whiskey, Nilsen was in one corner of the room listening to music on his headphones. The Canadian, feeling rather wasted, had his back turned to him. Nilsen crept across the room and strangled the man with the headphone cord, whereafter he sat back and carried on listening to music. For the next week, during his boozy nights, he sat next to the dead body. He placed it upright in an armchair to make it seem like the body was still alive. Together, they watched TV. Nilsen laughed out loud at the comedies he liked, occasionally turning to his partner, the corpse, and remarking how funny the show was. The relationship ended when bloating and putrefaction started. The body went under the floorboards, but now Nilsen was single again, the great problem of his life.